Applications based on the requirements of your customers. Each of these will have its own nuances and requirements. When installing applications and software, the common process for downloading is shown on the screen here by selecting the Start menu, going to the Control Panel, selecting Get Programs, selecting the specific application, and clicking on Install. If it's a totally new piece of software and you may have downloaded the application, you'll have to install based on the installation requirements. You may also need to remove or uninstall software or applications. You can see this on this Windows 10 version, and you can type in the application you want to uninstall on the search list, and then it'll pull up the associated files. You simply click to uninstall this application, and this is shown in the red circle above here where you can search the specific type of application you want to remove. Oftentimes, you will simply be repairing an application. You can go through a similar process through the control panel and click on Repair in the menu. Many software programs now have repair wizards which will guide you through the process. Occasionally, there's no repair wizards and you're going to have to refer to manufacturer or vendor recommendations based on their documentation. Compatibility is important for your computer users. Computer users have expectations that when they buy a new version of a product and load it onto a computer, that it should work. And this is most often the case. With Microsoft, they develop a number of applications that make sure they ensure earlier versions of Windows work with the current versions. And they let you know well in advance when they'll no longer support specific versions of Windows. So you can see on the screen a program compatibility troubleshooter. And this is in the upper right-hand corner. This allows you to find and fix any problems with older versions of programs that are currently running on the system or loaded in the current version of Windows. And this might help you resolve some of your customers' compatibility issues. Much of your work will be spent on optimizing computers for customers. Most often, all of the tools you need are built for this in one particular area of the system. And there are a number of software that you can use to optimize environments as well. And these can be set up to run periodically on a schedule. I do this for my own personal computer as an optimizer, and for disk defragmentation. I just set up a specific time I want that run, and it does it automatically. You can use your utility files to monitor and identify any areas you can optimize in system performance. Each user has a perception of what optimal performance is. So you'll work with some people and their computers boot really slow and I don't think they even notice it. And then you get a lot of calls from users saying my computer system is too slow. I get a lot of complaints about excessive boot times, and really some people I think are just totally oblivious to it because they just think that's how the system functions. So that's your job, to point people in the right direction and identify system bottlenecks. Bottlenecks occur within the 4 critical resources of the computer, and these include processors, memory, disk, and networks. All the bottlenecks occur in one of these 4 areas, and you'll encounter a number of issues, which may include hardware errors or things like a resource overuse. You can use the Task Manager or the Performance Monitor to review how your system is functioning. The Performance Monitor looks at performance data in real time and from system logs. It allows you to configure and schedule performance and trace events for analysis. It also lets you look at real-time information on hardware resources such as the CPU or the disk or the network and the memory in the system as well. These system resources are used by the operating system or services which have these actions attached to them. So it easily allows you to identify processes which lock up and a number of processes when they start or when they finish. You can see an event log here from a computer which shows a number of critical events which occurred indicated by the red dots with an X. So it gives you the timeline there from left to right in the dates, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 different events which occurred on this particular screen here, which is identifying some of the errors. This slide shows you a performance monitor. In this case, it happens to be a particular resource monitor. It shows you the key data about the processor and the memory and the network and bottlenecks. It shows you the functioning of each specific application files with the description and the status and how much of the resource it's using, such as the CPU or the disk or the network, and it really tells you what they're allocating to the specific application. And these are easily shown in a graphical representation. So you can tell where the minimal resources are being used and where you have the maximum resources being used for a particular item. It's really pretty cool there. You can look to the left and right and look at the graph where it's green and with the blue lines, and it shows you exactly when your key and peak resources are being used. These are the 4 critical areas I mentioned, which are shown by the performance monitor, so you may have issues with the processor, memory, disk, or the network. And this allows you to have several options for improvement, including ending processes, ending process trees, going to specific services, or changing application priorities. The Service tab allows you to start or stop services as necessary, and the Application tab lists all the applications that are running or not running, or those that might be even hung up. We'll cover more of these in a video demonstration. The important thing you need to know is you need to understand your critical resources and the objects that they relate to. There are many steps you can take to optimize your systems for the best performance. You have the ability to make changes to a number of system components, including printers and hard drives, memory, or system services or files. You can monitor these through the Performance Monitor to note any changes and improvements. Virtual memory uses your RAM and hard drive space to create a memory pool. There's a default page setting that's used for managing this file system size, and it sets the initial amount of RAM on the system. Then it dynamically adjusts the size as it's needed. This eliminates a lot of effort for you to have to keep maintaining and monitoring the page file size. So this is a good thing as far as already being set up in virtual memory. Access to a paging file is always slower than access to RAM, so the paging file is used for information that's accessed a lot less often. In order to improve this, you have to determine your maximum size by running your system for several days of typical hard drive use, and then you check for your peak usage in your system monitor. You want to set your paging file size between 1.2 and 1.5 times of your peak paging file size. Troubleshooting utilities help you address issues with disk configuration and to perform a number of diagnostic capabilities. Many of these can be accessed through the operating system utilities to perform disk maintenance. One of these is the defrag execution file, and it performs disk defragmentation by reading files and checking them for errors, and then moving to the optimal locations on the disk. And this reduces disk head seek time because it doesn't have to move back and forth from one sector to another. The other one you can use is the check disk exec file, and that searches for errors found on the disk and repairs them. It might also relocate some of the bad sectors and recover some of your readable information. The System Configuration utility allows for modification of the basic system files, and these include general files, boot files, your services, startup files, and tools. It allows you to create custom startup configurations for troubleshooting, perform any kind of selective startup, and then disable services and programs you may not need. Where you see the tabs on this system configuration, you'll see the general headings right there across the top where I've got the red arrow. And this shows the general tab, and it actually allows you to perform custom startup and determine what device drivers and services you want to be used. The boot tab allows you to choose which operating system you want to boot, as well as any safe operating or safe mode booting operations that you want to perform. The services tab allows you to specify which services you want to load on the boot. And then the startup tab allows you to select the processes you want to be run automatically when Windows boots up. Computer management allows you to interface with utilities on the computer to manage a number of services and tasks. Included within the computer management are event viewers, which show event log files, shared files, local user groups, and then records of performance or reliability. A device manager is also there, which is used to display hardware status and configuration information, and disk management. And this also allows you to manage your disk partitions and regularly schedule some of the routines you want to manage and schedule task applications that can run automatically. It's useful to be able to recognize and resolve common error codes and startup messages. Sometimes issues resolve around missing or corrupt files, and it's important for you to be able to understand and identify the steps to correct these problems. There are diagnostic utilities you can use for these. I mentioned some of the most common ones that you'll find on boot up, and these are things like including no operating system found, incorrect boot device, missing files, and when you have to boot up into safe mode. Those are there over there on the left hand side under missing boot files. Some of the more common files that may be missing and cause problems within your boot include NTLDR, which is a boot file loader, and it can be repaired through using the emergency repair startup process. You can also have the ntdetect.com, and it also shows a failure message. Sometimes the boot is corrupt or missing, and it can be edited with using a text editor. One thing you may need to do for the common files that are missing is you may need to rely on any type of a boot disk or zip drive to get it booted properly. Sometimes the WinLoad exec file can be missing, and the error will indicate that the selected entry could not be loaded because the application is missing or corrupt. To repair this, you want to use your startup repair process and use tools like the bootrec execution file. On Linux systems, you have two main loader packages, and these are LILO and GRUB, which can often be used to reload the starting computer from the Linux installation media and running a terminal based on the bootloader repair tool. This chapter's lectures covered applications utilities, troubleshooting, and optimization for computers. This video demonstration is going to cover the application utilities component of it. So as IT professionals, we frequently upgrade and we remove applications from computers. This might be hardware or software, and sometimes we're required to install or uninstall programs. On the screen, I have a Sony camera. This is the box that it comes in, and this is the disk that comes inside the box. I'm going to go ahead and insert this in the drive and let it start to boot up. So many times you'll have customers that bring you a new camera and they want to have the software loaded onto the computer if they have issues or are unable or don't have the confidence to load it on themselves. So I've loaded the disk in the drive and it's asking me what I want to do with the DVD drive. I want to click on that and I want to run the installation program. You want to verify that it's a known manufacturer in case you have some product that's been resold or things like that and been found on the internet and may have some kind of a bootleg copy on that. So you want to make sure that you've got legit software. I want to click yes on here and it's going to give me some options. I can install, I can look at the product registration, or I can get a handbook on the installation. So I want to click install. And you can hear the drive reading. It's preparing the installer. So you have a number of different options. Someone might bring you I'm going to click next. So I'm going to actually load the files and get it started. It's going to ask me my location and country, my language, and then you've got your user agreement. So you have to accept the terms there or the product will not download. And this is some of the legal requirements for the software. I'll click next. It gives you two different installation options. You've got the standard or the custom. Standard is typically what customers will run. Custom is if you want to only load specific parts of the program or if you want to load it in specific areas or drives on your computer. I'm going to click standard option. This is where it's going to place all the files from this program. It's going to place them on the hard drive in the program files folder, and it'll have a new folder named Sony and then PMB. So all of the files that come off this CD-ROM disk will be placed into there. I'm going to click install. So as I was mentioning, many times you'll have an installation disk that comes with a product, and other times you or your customers will be purchasing products online. I had a video installer I purchased once from Amazon.com. So once you have paid for the item with your credit card, then it gives you the options to actually download the service or software. And that's really common today. You want to make sure that you're using a legitimate site and that you scan the files before you put them on your computer. So this is this CD installation disk. When I did that online, it's very similar installation. You click on the exec file and it will start to download the program, and you can choose exactly the location you want to place it in. So these are how you upload some programs. I'm going to allow this program to run, and I'm going to talk about uninstallation or deinstallation of processes. So a lot of times you'll add information to a computer and sometimes you want to uninstall it. So for that, you'll go to the control menu under the control panel. All right, so you can see the files are almost done loading there. This is your loading of files. Sometimes you want to remove files, so that is done through the control panel and your program. So it says right here, I want to uninstall a program. You'll click there. It gives you a few options. So if you want more information on how to install a program, that's available there. You can look at things that you've recently installed. and you can go back to previous versions. And sometimes we have issues when you're loading up older pieces of equipment. Say maybe somebody purchased something from a garage sale or off Craigslist or off the internet. You may need to go back to previous versions of Windows to help that meet the compatibility requirements. So this is about halfway done. I'm going to keep going. On the uninstall a program, you'll click on there. You'll have a few options that are very specific to what you want to do. Once you click on each one of these, you'll have the option to uninstall, change, or repair. So I want to show you the difference with a few of those. Let's go to maybe the Google Chrome. On Google Chrome, the only option I have is my ability to uninstall. So I can totally remove the Google Chrome, and that's done here. I would click on this uninstall. It's going to take me to a file which wants to make sure that that's what I want to do. I'm going to click no on that for now. So that was the Google Chrome. And then the next thing I want to show you is maybe the Adobe Acrobat Reader. If I click here, all right, I have to accept this license related to my PMD, my PMB installer, so that's still running in the background. I'm going to keep letting that read. So as I was saying, for the Adobe Acrobat Reader, it gives me two options now. I can uninstall or I can change the product. So that'll allow me to make some changes and do some updates. Let's see how my software is doing. Okay, this was successfully installed. Everything's ready for use. I click next. Typically, it's going to want you to reboot the computer. I can connect to the device and it'll give me further information. So basically, what's on a CD-ROM disk may not be everything that's totally needed as far as upgrades and security patches and things like that. So when you're done, the product will actually want to link to the internet and download additional files. I'm going to click Finish. Okay, and it's going to give me the restart. So I'm going to actually have to restart the computer for this to operate properly. I'm going to turn this off so we don't have that occur, and I'll go ahead and click OK. So that's how you install off of that disk. So we looked at the Google Chrome. I only have the option to uninstall a product. I went to Adobe Reader. I can uninstall or change. And then if I go to maybe this Apple application, I can uninstall, change, or repair the item. So sometimes you might want to remove it. Sometimes you might want to modify it, or sometimes you might want to repair any kind of issue with it. So I'll click Repair and let you see what the menu looks like. It's getting some basic information. It's wanting to know if I want to allow the computer to do this, so I'm going to say yes. And it searches for some basic information. It's going to take just a second to download this. But it's really important. This is an ability that you have to repair some of your products. So depending on what's not functioning, this might be a good option. Another thing I'm going to talk about in the next demonstration is your compatibility troubleshooter. Okay, I'm going to let that run. I'm going to go into compatibility while we wait. It's still getting my information there. And the compatibility troubleshooter will let you fix problems that are running with older versions of software. And I'm going to show you that in the next video demonstration. But I wanted you to know that and be able to see if I had issue with this Sony program, I can actually click on it. Okay. I can actually click next here, and it'll detect any kind of issue. So it's going to pull up the basic software. And I could go up and down here. I can look at my printer, and I can see what problems I've got there with compatibility. I've got my PMB program. So this is the program I just loaded. If I've got any problems with compatibility, I can click on those and click Next. It'll look for any kind of common issues related to PMB. Okay, I've got two options. I can try the recommended settings, or I can try to troubleshoot the problem. I'm going to troubleshoot the problem. And it gives you several options here. Either it worked earlier in Windows, but it can't install or run now, it doesn't open or display correctly, or I don't see any of my problems listed. So you can select any one of those, and you'll have to run through successive trials of each different one of these. It's like the troubleshooting lecture where we talk about each step. You want to go through the first one and let that run all the way and see if you've got any issues. And then you want to go to the program opens but doesn't display. Work through each one of these until it tries to resolve what the issue was with compatibility. So I'm going to go through that a little bit more in depth in our next demonstration. But thank you for joining me for this demonstration. We have a number of different troubleshooting demonstrations for both internal issues and external issues. And these are some of the tools that you can use for internal issues like software or programs. In our chapter lecture, we covered applications, utilities, troubleshooting, and optimization. So this video demonstration is going to cover the troubleshooting procedures. In our previous video, I talked a little bit about the compatibility checking for our Sony software for the camera. So you would go to type in compatibility at the start menu, and then I'll select here, and this will take you to the program compatibility troubleshooter. I'll click next, and then I'll go down and I'll look for specific software that I want to check the compatibility of. This is our PMB software that we just loaded for the camera. I'll click next. It'll give me the option to either look at some of the recommended settings or how to troubleshoot the program. So if I try the recommended settings, it's actually going to take me to the program and ask me to test it. And then I'll click next. So the troubleshooting has been completed basically because I just loaded this program. It has no issues. And it'll ask me if the problem's fixed. I can say yes or no, or I can report it to Microsoft. It's looking or showing me the results of the compatibility troubleshooting. So it says it's done, had an incompatible program, and it determined any issues and fixed those. So that's how you use the compatibility checker. And you can use that for any type of software on the computer that you've got that you want to do testing for compatibility. So then I want to show you something else related to troubleshooting. And you can go through the menu to the troubleshoot settings. Type that in your start menu. And it'll give you some options over here on your left in your current version of Windows 10. You want to click troubleshoot. It will give you several options of pieces of hardware that you can check or Windows updates that can occur. So there are a number of things that you can test to determine the issues. Makes our work a little bit easier as you're trying to work through any issues on an individual's computer. So let's just look at the internet connections, and it'll let me fix problems with connecting to the internet. You click, simply click on it, and then you click Run the Troubleshooter, and it'll determine any kind of connection issues. So I want to connect, or you can look at a web page, or I want to connect to the internet. It's going to run a test for that, show me some of the configuration details. Right now it couldn't identify a problem. That's because my internet is up and running and it's functioning okay. So let's look at an example like playing audio. This will help you work with issues on sound. I'm going to click Run the Troubleshooter. You may have to click in your window down at the bottom. Okay, and this will give me some sound enhancements, a number of things I can work on. So I want to open the audio enhancements. It's actually checking some of the speakers, so I'm going to move this over for you a little bit and resolving some of the problems. And it's giving me some options on doing some test sounds. So I can play some test sounds here. Then you have the option to say if that sounds good to you or if it's bad, and you can reinstall a driver if it sounds bad. I'm going to click good because that sounds okay to me. And it'll tell you a little bit of information about it. Unable to automatically fix all of the issues found, you can find more details below. And it has a generic audio driver. So I can give feedback or I can close this. My sound sounds okay, so I'm going to move on from there. I can click the printer and run the troubleshooter there. Got to go down to the bottom. it'll ask me which printer I want to troubleshoot. My Epson, I've got a PDF driver or OneNote, and then my printer is not listed. So I can run any of these to do a test print on. Let's go to the OneNote. Okay, and it found some things that it can do as far as fixing that as the default printer, and I can apply this fix. Right now I want to keep it tied to the Epson, so I'm not going to do that, but you can simply know that once you're done running some of the troubleshooting capabilities, it will let you apply and use any of the patches or fixes to it. The Windows Update, let's run the troubleshooter for that. Click down at the bottom. It's detecting any kind of system issues with a number of different things. You could see the registry. Okay, it couldn't identify any problems with that because I've got a fairly well optimized computer. Let me click the keyboard and show you the running the troubleshooter for that. Troubleshooting was completed, so my keyboard is functional. I'm going to close the. Then I can look at power settings from my computer. This is pretty handy because we talked about energy consumption and making sure that we have the ability to run things optimally as far as working for our computer. So troubleshooting is completed here. There weren't any issues with it. That's because I've fairly recently run that for my power settings. So I'll click the detailed settings for the report. And these are some of the common things that it goes through and gives you options to correct. And it will self-correct these and highlight them with a green check mark. So the time display dims before too long of a time, or the power plan is set to high performance mode. So it goes through and optimizes each one of these settings, like your processor state, displaying brightness, and it'll go through anything that you want to use as far as potentially building up your battery life. So you can go through each different thing. You can go through your microphones. You can go through any of your apps and troubleshoot any app in the store there simply by clicking the item that you want to do and running the troubleshooter. Makes it fairly easy. So once you've loaded on any type of software, run the compatibility checker. Got it going well. If you have any other issues with software or programs, you can run the troubleshooter. This will also work on your hardware, like the Bluetooth, your keyboard, your network adapter, or your audio or video connectors. When we talked in our lecture, we covered application utilities, troubleshooting, and optimization. So we've already discussed through some of our lectures in video demonstration the available application utilities you can use to optimize your computer, some of the troubleshooting steps you can take. Now I wanted to talk about a number of different things you can do to optimize your computer. And you may receive a number of computers in your shop which are slow and need a bit of a tune-up. When you're optimizing, you really want to repair issues and identify any kind of bottlenecks. And there are a number of myths related to what may or may not speed up a computer. Most of the PC cleaners that you find on the internet, they really offer a little more value than just basic tools that are already available. Windows 10 includes a defragmenter that's already automatically loaded in and defragments continually. In Windows 7 and 8, you may need to run that routinely. So what I've got on the screen is a disk cleanup. If you click on that, you get to that through the start menu, type in disk cleanup. It will choose your hard drive, or you can select any type of drive that you want to clean up. I'll click OK, and it's going to perform a little bit of analysis on what it can clean up or what's available on there that will free up some memory. So you generally have any kind of program files. Currently there's nothing in there. Some temporary internet files. You've got other files that may be taking up some space, such as some thumbnails. So I can click to view these files or clean them up. I'm going to click OK, and in the background it's going to be running a cleanup, and I'll show you that in a minute. The other thing you want to do is run a disk defragmenter, and you type in disk defragment in the back there, and you have defragment and optimize your drives. So click on this, and it will show you your basic drives that are loaded on the computer. You can perform an analysis of these or optimize these. One thing you want to do is double check to make sure your scheduled optimization is on. So right now it says this is off. The drives are not being optimized automatically. So I can turn that on and I can run it on a specific, whoops, okay. So now my disk cleanup is finally done. It's made its analysis and it has the specific files that can be cleaned up. Really, those are by title files for each of the internet pages and things like that. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to ask me if I want to permanently delete these files. I'm going to click yes. Okay, and that is working over here. So let me move the optimization over a little bit. So I can run this on a schedule. You know, how often do I want to optimize it? It gives me a lot of choices, daily, weekly, or monthly. I don't want to overdo it, so I'm going to leave it with weekly because that's recommended. And I'm going to click OK. So in the background, the other process has deleted any of my temporary internet files. What I can do on here for optimizing drives, this takes a little bit longer depending on what's on the drive, how many files, how many folders. If it's 5, 6, 7 years old, it's going to take a long time to do this, especially if it's never been done. If it's a new computer, it may do it in just a few minutes. So I can click to optimize this, and it's going to perform an analysis of it and give me some recommendations. So what it's doing is it's reading right now, you can see by this percentage, and telling what available space is available on the computer. And it's going to take pieces or chunks of the memory and rewrite them and move them closer in line to support making it more, I want to say, like a fluid flow of information through a computer. So when you've got fragments, you've got some information written over to maybe the right of your disk and then to your left. And it really takes those and puts those all sequentially. So when a computer's searching for information, it doesn't have to go back and forth to several different areas. It moves or defragments this by taking the little pieces of the fragment and putting those together in blocks or clusters that are clustered together. That way you can access the information a little bit more faster. So right here you can see the pass. Right now it does several passes on your drive. It could be first pass, second pass, third pass. It runs several different passes on your drive to reallocate the information. So once it's moved or straightened up some information as far as writing it onto the hard disk, it goes back and double checks and sees if there's anything it can move a little bit closer. So I'm going to let that run in the background. It's running and takes a little bit of time. I can stop it or leave it here. So I'm going to let that run, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about a couple of other things. Next thing I wanted to talk about is your system configuration. And you can type that in the start engine, and it will take you to this app right here. Let's click on that. It takes a second or two to load. And your system configuration looks a little bit like this. The more apps that you have running, the fewer resources that you have available for other resources. So you can disable some of these services that aren't required, but you need to understand what you're disabling, and you want to check your startup tab to do that. So you can make things faster when you boot up for the startup by opening your task manager, and it'll show you the actual files that Windows tries to help you with. Right now I want to go ahead and show you through a couple other components before we do that, because I do have a startup menu demonstration here in just a bit. So as you're working on this, you want to disable things that you may not need during the startup. And these are a lot of things you have to remember can affect your security and some of your process operations. So you've got to be sure when you're looking through the different information on the tools and tabs, you understand what you're deleting. And what I wanted to give you a precursor for on this a little bit is the speed that you notice from these changes is going to be kind of minimal. And this is often one of the myths that comes from trying to obtain speed if you're talking with other tech folks or looking on the internet. There's a lot of myths on there on what's going to speed things up. But all in all, in the system configuration, it gives you a couple of different options. You could do a normal startup or your diagnostic. You can do a selective startup, so that will load things a little bit faster depending on selecting what you want loaded on there. You know, your system services or load all your startup menu. You can boot into safe boot mode if you've had some issues with the stability of your computer loading up. And then you've got your services. So each and every one of these are services that can tell you whether they're running or stopped. And these are all things that are needed by the computer. I'm going to go into the start menu in just a little bit. And then your tools. This is Windows. You've got different information on each one of the tools for getting you to how you can optimize different pieces. Like the remote assistance, let's pick that. If I launch that, it'll take you right to the tool. I can invite someone that I want to help, or invite someone to help me. Let's look at your event viewer. Let's launch that. It'll take me right to my event viewer. So this will take you right to everything that may help you with configuration of your startup, your system configuration. So when I go to the startup menu, I can open my task manager, and I want to show you through a separate display on this with each one of the tabs, because there are a lot of available options that you can do as far as optimizing some of your startup services. But all in all, I wanted you to see through the system configuration, it shows you the boot up process and what's available for booting it and making your computer work. So you can go through system configuration and determine if there's specific services that you don't need. I recommend that you research each one of these and make sure that it's definitely something that you either need or don't need, and you're very careful, because you can see there's a lot of, like, this is a Dell computer. Although that's the support, there are a number of programs related to your software like Microsoft and Norton, things that are really critical to my operation, so I can't just randomly pick one and turn it off and see if I need that or don't need that. When I loaded up the Sony camera, this is a PMB device, so I'd probably be pretty safe on disabling that and clicking apply. But if you want to keep all of your hardware and software devices up to date, I'm going to want to keep some of that loaded in my system configuration. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. What I'm going to do in my next demonstration here is I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the startup and a couple other configurations that you can use to optimize some things.